I never actually intended to write for comics. I wanted to draw for comics. I was in the 8th grade and taking one of the art classes that used to be available in all schools when the arts mattered to the government. And my art teacher said that I had drawn a picture of a shark, of all things. And my art teacher said, "That's very good. You show actual artistic talent. You could be an artist." And my thought was, well, if I can, I'm going to be a comic book artist. So I then majored in art for the rest of my high school and college career to become an artist. The only writing I did was to give myself things to draw. But when I turned the samples in to DC Comics in hopes of getting a job as an artist, they said, "Well, the art's okay, but it's not there yet. But the writing's pretty good. Would you like to write for us?" At that point, if they had asked me, did I want to staple the comics for a living, I would have said yes. Anything to get into the business. So I started writing, and I've been a writer ever since. I'm always asked how Swamp Thing came into existence, and unlike almost every other character I ever created, I don't know. It's the hardest story for me to actually articulate. I was living in Queens at the time, Queens, New York, and the offices were in New York. And this was early in my career when mostly what I was writing for DC were mystery stories for their mystery anthology line. And I was taking the subway to the office one day to pitch some new stories. And the idea came to me on the subway of the basic story. And I pitched it to Joe Orlando, who was my editor at the time, editing The House of Mystery and The House of Secrets. And Joe liked the idea. He made a couple of suggestions to improve the plot and sent me home to write the script. And the only thing I do know is where the name comes from. Because while I was writing the story, I kept referring to the story as that Swamp Thing I'm working on. And when I got down to having to name the story and name the character, I went, "Oh, there it is." It was right in front of me. And that I can tell you. I know where he got named. But where the initial idea came from, I honestly cannot tell you.
Cable. Cable.
I think every story I've ever written, if it's any good, is a human story. It's the kind of stuff I prefer writing. I always like writing most about the human condition. And, it wasn't anything that in particular had happened to me exactly that way, or even in essence that way. But it was a story everyone can connect with, a story about lost love and love beyond death for all intents and purposes. And that's what I was writing about. I was really just writing about the human condition. The amazing aspect of what he has gone through evolution-wise over the years is even when Alan Moore took over and asked me if he could do what he ultimately went and did, which is to tell you that Swamp Thing really wasn't Alec Holland. It was a plant that believed it was Alec Holland. It still remained about the humanity of the character. Here's a plant that is human now. It has taken on all the aspects of the body it absorbed. And I think that is part of the major connection with the audience. There's always something about the character you can relate to. The quest for humanity, the ability of humanity to overcome its inherent insufficiencies.
It's very kind.
The first movie waved at the source material periodically going by. There are moments in the film which are almost verbatim out of the original comics. I actually really love the opening section. Everything through the origin, through the moment where he blows up and goes running into the swamp is almost straight out of the comic. And I think that's terrific. I thought Ray Wise was a great Alec Holland. I've always liked Ray's work and everything he'd ever done, practically.
You see that little guy? Never existed on the face of the earth before. That's my baby. A simple vegetable cell with an unmistakable animal nucleus.
Recombinant DNA?
Hey, that's very good. I am very close to developing a plant with an animal's aggressive power for survival. A plant for the 21st century.
But it's not a big budget movie. When you've got a lot of money, you can do a lot. When you don't, you've got to be ingenious. You've got to find ways to stretch every dollar and accomplish as much as you can with the limitations you're given.
It's back! Stop the Jeep! Run her down! Don't stop!
I thought Dick Durock was a perfect choice for Swamp Thing. I had known his work to some degree in other films he'd done, but he had the hardest job in the world, which is acting under all of that muck and still maintaining the character's humanity, as I've talked about. And he did. You know, there was a great humanity to the character under Dick. I'm sorry he's gone. I miss him. But I thought he absolutely captured the heart of the character. And that's what you need. In all of the films, on the television series, he was the one staple and consistent. And he managed to continue to make you care about the character in all those incarnations.
You can start your work again.
With these,
I'll be your hand. Please.
you need to heal. You need to tell our story. I'll see you soon. Until then, I'll always be with you.
Going to the movie set was initially the first time I'd ever done that, and it was utterly surreal to me to see my characters wandering past, walking around, being introduced to Dick, who was in half the costume, and I'm going, well, that's kind of creepy, and being told, I mean, they were shooting in the swamp. It was literally not a set, but a swamp, much of it, and being told by the ADs, careful where you step, there's water moccasins and crocodiles around here, so if you're not careful, you may not make it off the set alive. And that was an interesting moment of, well, this is very real all of a sudden.
Weird, isn't it? Local fishermen say this place is haunted.
I don't know where we are, Toto. This sure isn't Kansas.
What?
Nothing.
I've always liked Wes Craven's work. I've been a fan of his. He cares about what he's doing, and I appreciate that. I have said for years, and you can see it in the various superhero and comic book related movies that have been done over the last few decades, that when a director or producer comes to a superhero film with the attitude, well, let's not worry about it, this is just a comic book, you're doomed. The word just the comic book put a stake through the heart of any movie based on the original source material. Sam Raimi is a huge Spider-Man fan. He treated it with respect. I think Wes treated Swamp Thing with respect. The same way that the Nolans have treated Batman with respect. You've got to come at these characters believing in the project you're working on. If it's just a job, the audience won't care any more than you do in the end.
You don't understand. There's nothing hidden. No secrets. The formula works in so simple a way. What Bruno took was what changed me. It only amplifies your essence. It simply makes you more of what you already are.
But the first thing I learned when I started to write for other mediums is that it is critical that you write for the medium you're working in. I've adapted a number of my own stories over the years, including, in fact, Swamp Thing. I did a screenplay for Joel Silver about a decade ago now that makes many changes to the comic without, I hope, changing the heart of anything. Arcane, in fact, is Alec Holland's partner in it initially, and there's all sorts of stuff. Because things work for each medium that don't work in others. There are elements of comics that are uniquely, traditionally comics. And you've got to remember that when you're working in others. You've got to work for the medium you're in.
Say hello to your boyfriend, baby. What the hell was that?
When those first movies were made, you had to put a guy in a rubber suit if you wanted a Swamp Thing. When I sat down with Joel Silver to work on the script that I did, the first thing he said to me is, if we're going to do this, we're going to do this right. CG or nothing. And I said, oh, twist my arm. That'll be really hard to get along with. And even now, CG has taken such leaps and bounds that you could do Alan's version of the character who keeps morphing and changing shape and controls the plant world as the Green much easier than you could have done it then. I hope eventually we will see this movie. I know Guillermo del Toro has wanted to make a Swamp Thing movie for decades now. But when they sat down to start doing this, apparently nobody knows who has the movie rights at the moment. It's all very tangled up somehow. And so it keeps getting backburnered. I continue to look forward to see where he's going. I think DC Comics recently finally got it right again. They put Swamp Thing back in the DC universe as opposed to the Vertigo universe. He works best when he can interact with other abnormal creatures. And when you get to watch him act against Superman or Batman especially, he's a much more fun character because he affects that world in ways no other character can. And so right now with what Scott Snyder had been doing recently in the book, and I look forward to seeing what their new writer is going to do.
He told me to come get you. He'll be back though, right?